Now let's better understand the files that are involved in designing our view. So previously we created our simple screen folder, and in it we added our controller and our view. I want to focus on that for a second. So let's right click on simple screen and say new Solution Explorer view. That way I get the Solution Explorer that just focuses on this folder, and this is very useful in cases when you want to focus on something. So let's put it over here. Great. So in terms of file, when we added our controller, two files were created: the show orders, which is our code, and the show orders view, which is our designer. The show orders is called the controller, and it inherits from the UI controller base, and the show orders view is called the view. Now the view is not just one file. There's actually several files that takes place when you're playing with the view. Some of those files has different way of looking at them. So what we are seeing right now is the visual designer. It's the design of show order. Sometimes we want to write code behind, as they say. So we can right click on the form and say view code. And this is where the code behind of the view is written. Over here we'll write the UI related logic like color, font, conditions, as opposed where in the controller we're going to write the actual logic of the application of the code. Let's go ahead and put them side by side so we can see the connection between them. We can see that the view is aware of the controller. It has a member of type show orders, and its name is controller. And when we call it, we say new show orders view, and we send it ourselves. We send the controller. This then comes to this controller variable value and assigned to this member. Whenever we want to reference the business logic or the controller from the view, we're going to say underscore controller. Great, so this is one of the files. As I said, it's called the code behind. We're going to refer to it as the code behind of the view. Now, if we look at the Solution Explorer again, we can see that there are several, there's a plus over here that I can open, and here we can see several more things. First of all, we can see the class, which will take us to the code. If we double click the screen, it will take us to the screen. If we double click the class, it will take us to the code behind. That's great. Now there's these two files. And these two files are generated by Visual Studio and maintained completely by Visual Studio. But whenever you are designing something over here, you're making a change, you're putting some text boxes or anything, Visual Studio stores that. It stored most of this information in a file that is in C# called the designer file. Okay? And here we can see that it has all of our controls, and if we open the region of designer generated code, we can see all the codes that it's generated. I'm going to focus on this in a second. And we can see the resix file, and this is where Visual Studio will usually store a localization information or complex strings or images maybe. But these two files again are a little concern to you when you write your code because they are completely maintained by Visual Studio automatically. Now just to demonstrate how every change that you make in the designer will affect the code over here, so let's go and change the title of this column from ship via then to shipper. Okay, perfect. Now if we go and look at the files that have changed, we can see that the resix have changed. We can see several files that have changed. Let's double click on the designer code and we'll see the change. We see that we've changed ship via to shipper. And when you look at this code, you actually see, okay, there's a Git column, its name is GC ship via, the text is shipper, the width is 164. The fun thing about this file is you can learn a lot by reading its code about how things are going on behind the scenes. You can see, for example, if we go to, let's have some more room over here, we can see that the text order ID is positioned at 2 and 1. Okay, it's X2 and Y1. The name is text order ID. The size is 94 in width and 18 pixels in height. Its style is flat, and the data is the order ID from the order table of our controller. So this file is interesting in terms of reading it, and you can also take examples from it and take it into your code when you try to play with external controls or stuff like that. So to summarize, our controller is built out of several items. Our program is built out of several items. There's our controller file where we'll write our logic. There is the screen, which we'll design here, and the code behind where we will write our logic. And then there's the resix and designer files that are maintained by Visual Studio and have the code that is used to create this visual design.